Blog Talk Radio.
This is Heart to Heart Talk Radio, part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. I am your host, Daniel Scranton. For the next hour or so, please listen with your heart.
Hello, Radio Land. This is Daniel Scranton. This is Heart to Heart Radio. We are part of the ENlightenment Evolution Network. And any views expressed on this show, any opinions, any type of belief system programming is not a reflection on the Enlightenment Evolution Network. It's just my own stuff. Just, what I got going on. Oh, and today is Monday, November the 10th, 2014. And my very special guest is Miss Terri Plewa. And Terri and I have met through Facebook, and we like each other. And we've had several interactions on the FacePlace. And I know that she does all sorts of cool stuff, astrology and card readings and intuitive knowings and all that good stuff. So I thought she'd be a perfect guest for the show. And I think I'm right. So let me test that theory and bring her on the air now. Hello, Ms. Terri.
Hello, Daniel. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. And, oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, broadcasting from Hawaii. I think I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, that's exciting.
The first ever show from Hawaii.
Woo-hoo!
That's kind of exciting.
I'm in Hawaii now.
Yeah, I just transported you.
I've been working on manifesting that trip, so this is one step closer.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you get lucky, you get a good airfare, something that could be like hundreds of dollars lower than if you check the next day at the same time or something. You know what I mean? Like it seems to fluctuate how much it costs to come here by quite a bit.
I have faith it will all happen in the perfect timing.
Yeah, and then you can always get a free ticket. That's always a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could definitely stay with me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I might be bringing 3 male folk with me, though.
3 males? Yeah.
Yeah, can I bring 3 males?
that might be a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, so we'll see. You don't have to commit right now in front of the whole audience and everything.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about how, I want to know, you're in the Midwest somewhere, right?
I am not, but I was born in the Midwest. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Washington. Okay.
I am, yes. I was born in Wisconsin, and I moved to Olympia, Washington 8 years ago.
Uh-huh. Sweet. That's a beautiful part of the U.S.
Yes, we moved here very mindfully just because we wanted to be near the ocean and near the mountains and in a place where people had relatively open minds.
Mm-hmm.
So, happy here.
Cool.
I like it here a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so growing up in Wisconsin, what was that like? What was your family like? Was there a religion being broadcast in your direction, or?
That's cute. Yes, there was, and I noticed. I think we have that in common. I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic grade school, and we went to church, every Sunday and all that jazz. But then I pretty much let go of that, even though I went to a Catholic college, too. Interestingly enough, at the Catholic college where they taught me the history of the Christian church is when I was like, I'm not so sure about this Christianity stuff. So, but I mean,
really?
I believe
So it wasn't until college then that you started to question things?
I'm sure I started questioning it sooner, probably letting it. Maybe I wasn't thinking about it that much. I don't know. I was probably thinking about boys and dance clubs and things like that. Music.
Like Footloose.
Yes, it was just like Footloose. No, not really. I was able to dance, and I wore a lot of black.
Oh, yeah?
Mhm.
Nice.
But, yeah, so what was, I still remember, however, like the first time that I went into a New Age bookstore. Gosh, I think it was called Highwind Books, if anyone's listening from Wisconsin. It was on Oakland on the fashionable east side of Milwaukee, and I remember like going from section to section and being just astonished because I was like, oh, they have astrology books. That's so cool. I'm interested in that. And oh my gosh, there's dolphins, and oh wow, there's something about crystals, and oh, there's something about past lives. And it was all things, my hair is standing on end. It was all things I was kind of interested in, but I never had an idea that they all went together. You know, when I saw them, all these things together in one place, I was like, oh, this is for me, you know?
Oh, yeah. That is so cool. I mean, it's so interesting to find an oasis, you know, like in the middle of Wisconsin, a place like that.
Yes.
I mean, Madison is kind of known for being a little bit more progressive because of the university there, right?
Yeah, I think so. And there was a metaphysical church called St. Anne, and I don't know why they really, I guess I knew at the time probably why they called it that, but it was all the sorts of things I was interested in, and they vaguely resembled like a regular Christian Catholic church, the way they operated with like a message and greeting each other and, you know, all that, but with all new ideas and new thoughts. And right around that time, I manifested, I used these manifestation principles to manifest a win of all of these free books from a contest my work was doing. And it was kind of funny because most of the time they were giving away things like tickets to a basketball game or, you know, a gift certificate to Wild Buffalo Wings or whatever, like all this stuff that I didn't want. And then there was you could get a free book every month off of the New York bestsellers list for a year. And I was like, that is for me. That is mine. And I really claimed it, and I just, like, I can feel it now. Can you feel it? I felt like nobody in this building, and I mean, there were 500 people in that building. I was like, nobody in this building wants that more than I do. And I just, like, felt that, and I did win it. And it was interesting. So from that, I ended up getting the book Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsch.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me. And I facilitated a discussion group on those books. I don't even know for how long, 2-3 years maybe. So that was kind of in my early 20s. That was one of my big dips into the spiritual ocean.
Yeah. Wow. Kind of Conversations with God was so pivotal for me too.
It was so cool. Well, and he's, you know, he started out Catholic, and it was cool that I felt like I used the principles I learned in the book to have gotten the book. You know, because in the book one, they teach all this manifestation stuff. And so I was like, hey, I just did that. That really worked.
Yeah, that was one of those things where 3 people told me to read it, and then, you know, I was like, okay. I guess that means I'm supposed to read it, and then I was like, holy cow, I really love this book.
Yeah.
That was my introduction to channeling, actually, and I didn't even think of it as channeling at the time, but then a spiritual teacher of mine said, oh, you like channeling, do you? You should read this book. And yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So you're in your early 20s and you're discovering things, and then what happened?
And what happened? I think I got a little disillusioned because you get into these pockets of people. This has been my experience. You find this pocket of something that's like amazing, and you're like, I can't believe this exists, and you're so happy. And that was my experience with the community at this metaphysical church, and I got more and more into it, and I didn't have, I was a young woman, I didn't have a family yet or anything like that, so I was giving them a lot of time and energy. And when I got further into it, I started to see all the human qualities that the people there still had, which was all well and good, but I was like, kind of heartbroken. I'm like, I thought these people were all spiritual masters, and being a young, I don't know what exactly your experience was or even how old you are now, but being like fairly young and getting a lot of these concepts, there were a lot of like these older people who were like, ooh, you are so amazing, and they kind of like glommed on to me and stuff. And I just, it just started to not feel as good to me, and I walked away from it. And that was at the time that I met an important person in my life and ended up getting married and having a family. And through all of that, for a number of years, he was kind of disillusioned with the spiritual community too, and we sort of were disillusioned together for a while. And just, you start having kids and you got to focus on real life, hard physical stuff. Well, maybe you don't have to, but that was the path that I took at the time. And so I just kind of was like working the job. And I actually had an amazing job in Wisconsin, and that was very important to me. And it was, I guess, after we came out here in 2006, that I really started feeling the call to get back into, I don't know, like I watched The Secret again or something. Oh, an Abraham Hicks book like almost jumped off the shelf at me at the library too here. I was like, what is this? Abraham? Is this from the Bible? I was really drawn to it, but I'm like, I don't want to read about something from the Bible, but something in me said, take this book. So I did, and it was from the library, so it was okay. I checked it out. I didn't just take it. And that was a whole nother foray into really deep study and teaching for years with the Abraham Hicks material, which I still go back to often.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. The ask and it is given is very close to what it says in the Bible. Ask and ye shall receive, or something like that.
Oh, sure.
And then you have Abraham, which is obviously biblical too. And yet, Abraham's certainly not a big proponent of religion. So it's kind of funny that they went that route with the title and choosing the name Abraham, because obviously Abraham doesn't have a name.
Of everything I've ever listened to, I don't know if I've ever heard any specifics about why they chose or where the name came from. I mean, I guess she channeled it, right?
Yeah, she kind of, that was Esther's translation of the energy of Abraham, which is like what they say is we are at the root or the basis of all religions, which is what Abraham is known for, among other things. Linked to all three of the major, Islam, Christianity, Judaism.
Oh,
they all have roots in the person Abraham. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess when things got really, really interesting for me was probably, I think, about 2010, and I don't know where this came from. I don't remember the genesis of it. See, now I'm speaking biblically, Genesis. But I made this choice to always listen to my inner voice, always, and to listen for it and to do what it told me. And I made like a covenant with myself, with God, I don't know, same thing. And it's just been quite a wild ride since.
Yeah.
So that really, more than anything, has been spiritual graduate school. And when we moved to Washington from Wisconsin, we brought my mother with us. So that also is spiritual graduate school. My mother lives with me.
She does. Okay.
Yeah. And, I like the quote from Ram Dass where he says, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family.
Right.
So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Keep you humble.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so at what point in this journey did you become a teacher of this metaphysical stuff?
Well, it was a little bit on and off, and it's kind of interesting because I think I really started when I was facilitating the group in Milwaukee for Conversations with God. That was my first facilitation that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then the job I had was interesting. It was also interpretation. I feel like everything I do is interpretation, whether I'm writing, which I do a lot of, or doing astrology, or doing poetry, or working with a client. I'm working with my own guidance. I'm feeling energies and I'm interpreting them. So the job that I worked at in Wisconsin was at a museum, and they're literally what is called interpretation at a museum. And I taught people how to interpret that story. Which was a little different. And I worked with groups and one-on-one there. And then I started doing astrological sessions with people just here and there. And that was really interesting, too, to have all this information, because astrology, you get so much information. And same with channeling. I'm guessing you have this experience. It's like you get this download, and it's just like, bam, you've got all this information, and then you have to put it into these two-dimensional things called words and try to help someone else understand them. And I think that can be the biggest challenge for a lot of teachers or intuitives or astrologers, anyone who does anything vaguely resembling what both of us do. I think what we do, me and you, is a little bit similar in the same vein.
Yeah.
So, I guess
it's funny.
That was a long answer to I've been doing it all along.
Yeah. But at some point you step into it and you say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and not only that, but I'm going to build a website and offer sessions and readings and things like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been in 2010. That's when I, quit the day job and said, I'm just following this. And that was really, I don't know if I was frightened at the time, but it was frightening throughout. It's still sometimes frightening because it's such a, for some reason the image is coming to me, the leap of faith in Indiana Jones. Is it the third movie?
Yep.
Where you just have to walk out and you don't see anything and you have to trust that the little bridge is there. So it's like that. I like to share that video on Facebook a lot, just when I'm feeling it, because it feels like that's what the spiritual path is. That's been my experience of it, and the way of mastery is really it's always humbling, and it's always bringing you back into the now, and it's always surprising and inevitable at the same time. It's amazing.
Well, we have that in common, too, because 2010 is when I started channeling, and I immediately started to do workshops and offer sessions to people. Yeah.
Cool.
Before that, I had said, I'm so good at this, and people keep coming to me. I should be a life coach. And so I made a website around being a life coach and business cards, but I didn't pursue clients. I didn't, it wasn't like I was talking myself up as a life coach or, doing a lot of the things people do to put themselves out there. So then when I started channeling, it was like that was the thing. That was the thing that I really propelled me into my teacherhood. And
Yeah.
I
get that,
Oh,
go ahead.
I luckily had enough going on financially with other stuff to support myself through it, to put myself in a position where I could gain the clientele and the notoriety that I needed to be where I am today, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good message for anyone listening, because I think that's the biggest sticking point and the hardest thing when people want to make a big change and go from doing some sort of a drudge job to doing their life's work to really following their mission. It's like, how am I going to survive? I actually wrote a whole poem on this, and I didn't separate it out to read it today, but the answer is I don't know. But somehow it happens. You know, like you find ways when you make that commitment. You know, part of it for me at the time was I had a small retirement. I went through my retirement, you know. That's okay. But earlier I would have thought I can't possibly use that money. But that money was sitting there the whole time, and it was there for me, and I could use it, so I did. So sometimes it's just like shifting your perspective slightly, which can happen after you commit. You know, you commit to, I'm not going to live my life for someone else. I'm going to live my life from my soul and what really matters to me. And then the way is shown, and it's different for everyone. You know, sometimes it's kind of the same, but, you know, that's a paradox. It's the same and different all at once.
Yeah. I think, like Joseph Campbell has that hero's journey where he says, you know, well, this is typically what happens. You know, these are some of the major archetypal themes that you're going to encounter in a story and the different turning points and things. So we have a lot in common when it comes to this journey that we're on. And I also went through this phase, this is before I was channeling, where I wrote a poem every day. And I shared my poetry with people, and I must have done that for several months. You know, I saved it all in a Word document, and I thought that was it for me. Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is my rest of my life. It's all about walking in nature and then writing poems, and then, you know, publishing my poems. And you know, But what's really funny about this whole thing, so I was telling you that my spiritual teacher said to me, oh, you like channeling, then you should check out, and she said, Emmanuel's books, which are very obscure. Not too many people know about Emmanuel's books, but it was channeled material, and the woman has transitioned, the channel has transitioned now, who brought them through, but the books are very poetic. I remember saying to myself, like, it's the same information as what I was getting from conversations with God, but it's very poetic. And then the other day I was thinking about what channeling is and realizing that, you know, with poetry, it's not so much about what you're trying to say. It's about the way that you're saying it. It's about finding a way of putting a concept out there, or, you know, putting a truth out there, like we are all one, or everything is love, or something like that. And you find just the right words and just the right combinations of words and the cadence and the rhythm and all that stuff, and you put it together, and it's beautiful, and it touches people in ways, and in some ways that's what channeling is, because, you know, there's nothing new out there, and everything is true, but you have a way, as the channel, you have a way of interpreting, like you were talking about being the interpreter. And it's your unique way. It's you're bringing yourself and your experience and your vocabulary and everything into the spiritual concepts or ideas or teachings that you're bringing forth. And it's very poetic. It's very much like writing a poem.
It's so, like, wild to witness, too, because part of when I gave in to just following my guidance, I started getting these messages to begin writing again. And I'd always been a writer, but then I'd let go of that part of myself also when I was just working and being a mom. And it was hard for me to do that while I was married. So I was drawn to start writing these poems, and I was a little like, oh. Honestly, I don't like a lot of poetry. I'm kind of a snob about it. And
me too.
There's so much weird poetry out there. I just didn't want to identify.
It's hard to understand. It's
I don't identify as that. So they started coming, and then my guidance was like, you have to post them on Facebook. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like, why did I make this promise? So I started doing that, but it was so powerful, and I got so much amazing immediate feedback. And what cracked me up was that I've probably gotten a lot of clients through that because people can really see and feel who I am. And I would always think, if I were writing a business plan of how I'm going to set up a practice, I wouldn't put in there, first thing you should do is write poems and post them on Facebook, But so interesting the way we're led in these different ways. And they end up being just perfect, and they don't make sense to our rational minds at the time. It's like, why am I doing this? I should be, I don't know, perfecting my website or who knows what else. But it was interesting to me also what you were saying about you were doing this, you were doing that, and then you got channeling, and you're like, channeling, that's what I do, And I think that's really common. Well, maybe it's not common. What I've noticed is that as we dip more into the spiritual path, and each of us who is willing to look into our extra powers, our intuition, our channeling, whatever it is that most people aren't doing, it's like we think it's one thing, and we get in there, and it's like a whole other world of all these different choices, because each of us experiences this realm in a different way, So you think you're walking into something that's a certain way and we're all going to do it the same. But no, when we get into metaphysical skills, we all have unique metaphysical skills that manifest in just certain ways. And then they manifest at different times, Like maybe you're done with poetry for now, and maybe we'll come back again later, And I've kind of gone back and forth with where my focus goes, and just surrendering to the now. And I don't know if you're familiar with Bashar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I took from him that I love more than anything is finding your highest excitement and following that. Just following whatever's most exciting in the moment, and it doesn't make sense necessary to the rational mind, but it can be a huge quantum leap, And then afterwards you're like, oh, I see how that all happened, but the smaller mind doesn't get it, but the larger mind sees all, and that's how it communicates with us. It's just fascinating to me, and it's fascinating and brilliant and heartening to me that it's also blissful, and it makes us so happy. Like, that's really the path. Happiness and bliss and following what's enjoyable for us, We're so loved.
Completely. Yeah, and I love how Bashar has that emphasis, and Abraham has their emphasis, and different teachers like Artole has his emphasis, and they're not all the same, but they all make for like a complete understanding, or you may feel attracted to one at one time and attracted to another at another time, and they all give you their unique flavoring of the message.
For a long time, I was very, very drawn to more Western type ideals and Abraham and conversations with God, and that felt like a more Western approach, law of attraction, energy, resonance, all that. And then at some point, back in like 2011 or something, I somehow got hooked in with what I call the guru peeps. And, other people call them non-dualists, or what's the word, Aveda. And I got really just, I've always had a passing interest, or more than a passing interest, in Eastern mystics and sages, So, I mean, I love Abraham Hicks, and then I love Muji, and they seem to be saying the opposite things, but as they get further and as you go further and further, like as your vibration expands, you see they're totally not mutually exclusive. They're saying the same thing, that following what you want and creating it and surrendering, which to me are kind of the main ideals of each path, the Western path being I'm going to create this, and the Eastern path being more I'm going to surrender and God's going to make it happen. As you go further and further, you see it's the same thing. So it's kind of mind-boggling and exciting and paradoxical all at the same time.
Yeah, and the way that I look at it, too, is that you can take that approach to reality that I'm going to manifest, I'm going to create, I'm going to vision board all these things. And that's wonderful. And as you take that approach to life, you're still going to have to face all of those things that other teachers are kind of guiding you towards, and you're still going to have to surrender because, that's why I think we have certain desires, is to get us to move in certain directions that will always lead us back to ourselves and always lead us to the most important thing of all, which is the teaching that you are love, and your love incarnate, expressing yourself.
There we go. We could hang up right now. Period.
Yeah.
Show's over.
Yeah.
Say it again.
You are love incarnate, here expressing yourself. Period.
That's beautiful. I love it. I'm so happy to be talking with you.
Yeah, this is great. This is a lot of fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone's listening on the computer right now, and I hope you are, I hope some of you are out there, and you want to call and ask a question, we're going to get to questions later. It's 347, that's the area code, 308, and then 8788, and you can call in and just be on hold. You'll be listening on your phone until we decide we want to take questions. So, what's next?
I don't know, but that's one of my favorite questions. That's something me and my partner ask each other all the time. It's sort of the hallmark, I think, of being in the moment, because you go through something and then you get to completion, kind of, and you're like, okay, we're in this lull. Where do we go next?
Yeah. Did you want to recite some poetry?
I was thinking poetry might be next. I don't recite it. I'm still kind of figuring that out. I've been just a written poet. I haven't. I've read a couple poems out, and one of the things that is nearest and dearest to my heart right now is that we are creating a project of me reading some of my poems. And my boyfriend, Michael Merker, who is a musician, is going to put them to music. And then I will have recordings available for people. And then I plan to make a booklet along with it. So that is very exciting to me right now. So I'm in kind of a stage of going from being in the written word only, and now it's going into spoken word. And I'm trying, I'm allowing myself to feel into who and how I am as I do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
I know what you mean, because I've got the overtones that I make, and I always think I really want to jam with a musician and make recordings and do all kinds of things with them, but I haven't really been able to nail it down in terms of okay, this is the person and they have this recording studio, and we're just going to go in there and make some music.
Right.
So I know exactly what you mean, that I feel like there's something to be done with me and overtone singing, but I'm not really sure what.
People were asking for recordings from me, and I had a couple of other people try and help me, and it just never gelled. So I had to, seduce a musician.
Yeah.
Or did I just say that on air? No, we were just friends when he came up with the idea, and it's taken us like 2 years to get to it.
Wow.
But anyway. Yeah, but perfect timing, right? Everything's always in perfect timing. Mm-hmm. I have a major transition happening in my life astrologically that I won't go into the details with because it wouldn't make sense to non-astrologers anyway, but next spring. So for me, it feels like next spring is like a real coming out kind of possibility.
Is it Saturn return?
No, bless your little heart. I'll say it in case people know. My progressed sun is moving from Pisces into Aries.
Okay.
So I don't really want to go into explaining what that means, other than it's a massive shift.
Aries is
in
the god
energy.
of war, I know that.
Yeah, and it's going from the very end of the zodiac to the beginning of the zodiac, and it's going from a very emotional energy to a more fiery energy. So, and it's the end of a 30-year cycle for me. So it's the beginning of a new 30-year cycle. That's pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
So this one keeps staying in my hand, so I think I'll start with it. Is that cool?
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I don't really name them because I just haven't yet, because they came about in such large volumes. I was lazy about it. So I don't really start with names.
That's fine.
This vulnerability doesn't let up. This practice of being me, saying me, exposing me, it goes on. Each moment calls, be true, express. Sometimes silence is expression enough. More often, it is my responsibility to voice my feelings. Again and again and again. Does it get easier? Yes and no. Paradox. It's so easy to forget, to go back to old patterns of abandoning oneself to be safe. There's very little safety in abandonment. Stay with it. Stay with you. Stay with us. Stay true. I
didn't mean to leave you hanging there. I muted myself.
That's
and I had to yeah. So
I know, maybe I should
cool,
take
though,
the
we
end.
had that moment of silence where it's like, let it sink in.
Right, I feel that's good. And I've been working on myself becoming more comfortable with silences, although I hear it's not great in radio. Silence is so powerful, and that's, where we can really drop in and connect in so many ways. So that's fine.
Beautiful.
So, thank you.
Beautiful poetry. Yeah.
Thank you. I have, let's see, a few more. Do we want to go more with this? Do you get feedback from listeners? Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I don't have the chat thing open because I don't know. So
that's cool.
I don't know what. I don't see anything. Yeah, no one can write anything, so that would be the only way I could receive feedback. In fact, I may not even have internet at the moment, so.
Right.
Yeah, because as I attempt,
primitive Hawaiian.
Yeah, as I attempt to see, something online right now, it's frozen. So I don't even know. There could be people, waiting with their hands up to ask a question, and I can't. I don't know. Although the screen is counting down the show, I don't know. Well. Anyway.
Okay. All you listeners out
poems.
there. Okay. I know. I'm so excited to do that. My highest desire is to read poems right now. I'm actually in the middle of the recording process.
Cool.
Yeah. This next one, I kind of have a name. Usually I name them if I do with the first line. And this is really near and dear to my heart. I call myself a masculinist. I don't know, it started one Father's Day a number of years ago where I just started giving compliments to the men in my life, starting with my baby daddy and my father, and then going onto Facebook and honoring all of the men that I saw doing wonderful things just in life, you know. And then I wrote a blog post about it, and I just, like, it just opened my heart so much, and it's so brilliant from a law of attraction perspective, because then I started having all these great relationships with really quality men, you know. And sorry about that. That was an alarm that came through my phone. That was important information. The universe was like beep, 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 beep. So anyway, masculinist. And I wrote a poem that I call the woman poem, and then they asked me, just people who were reading my work on Facebook, asked me to write the other side, and from the man, like talking about loving a man. The poem, the woman poem, is all about loving a woman. And I was like, I can't write the man poem. The man should write the man poem, right? You know. And then all of a sudden, the man poem just came. I was like, oh, well, here's the man poem. I guess I can write it, and I will. So I usually do these together, but I really only feel like doing the man poem right now. So here it is. Be careful with a man's heart. It is a precious thing. Vulnerability lives there in equal measure to courage. Let him show you. Hold him there. Be openness. Be space. Be acceptance. Be love. When he has hopes, say, tell me more. When he has fears, say, tell me more. Let your body be a cradle. When he opens, he may have tears. Welcome each one. Kiss them. When he is weary, say, come, put your head in my lap, and I will stroke your hair and love you. When he is brave, shine your eyes at him and let him see your pride. Open your heart to him. Trust him to feel it. When he loves you, really loves you, surrender. When he's handsome, which is every day, kiss him tenderly with love, then lingeringly with deep passion, then more, more, more. Know this, his heart is yours. There is no difference. There is no difference. When he gives it to you, treat it like a treasure. There is no difference. You can come back now.
I did.
You.
I was more on the ball.
I like that you might have just floated off into the ethers a little as a result of the poem. Yeah, just my heart just goes out to men. I mean, women have a hard time. We all have a hard time. We all have our challenges, but I think that people don't see the challenges that men have a lot of the time, how confusing it is to be in this world and how much is taken away from men in their humanity, like to be a man, so much of their emotional and sensual pleasures are pretty much denied in certain ways, and it's unfortunate, and that's a big part of why there's so much friction in the world, because people aren't truly seeing and honoring the deep divine masculine and letting men express that, letting them be who they really are.
Yeah, amen.
So that's near to my heart.
It's really refreshing to hear you talk about being a masculinist and recognizing that men have as much to be challenged by as women do, even though it seems like men, because men have more political positions and make more money compared to females in the same job and all that stuff. It's like, that somehow makes it easier to be a man in the world, but not by my experience.
If men got the support that they needed and were able to blossom more into, their full selves, there wouldn't be so much friction and trauma and violence going on. And there's also a lot of violence coming the other way. I want to say that for sure too, that as the feminine has risen up, it's not always pretty. Yeah. And I stand with my sisters too, but it's just a deeper call to see each of us at our human level. That's why, that there is no difference repeated in the poem. It's like we have this idea that women have emotions and hearts and they're sensitive and men don't, Yeah. And that's just not true. We have to take care of a man's heart the same way. There's no difference. We're all humans.
Yeah.
And that goes for, whatever your sexual orientation might be or gender identification or any of it, it's for everyone really.
Yeah.
We all have sweet little sensitive hearts that need to be held.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's walking their path in some way with the challenges on it. Mm-hmm. Even just to take this one step further, even the wealthy, the rich, and even, let's say, famous people that seem like, they must have it made to the majority of the world, and looking at from that perspective and thinking that I'm sure there are just as many challenges for those individuals who are beyond wealthy and have all sorts of privilege and seemingly having power and so on. There's not they're not just sliding by on the fact that they can buy nice things. They still have all of their challenges, and it's just they're different challenges,
Sure. And it's a lot to think about, and it's more, if you have a lot of power and clout in the world, it's more responsibility, and hopefully people look at it that way. Look at like American presidents, especially if they go for 8 years, they go in with a certain hair color and they come out gray or white. That job ages you so fast.
Yeah.
That's a hard job. I mean, I don't even really want to go into politics too much, but Russell Brand was talking. I watched one of his videos. I love Russell Brand. I think he's brilliant, the comedian, but he's also now like a political essayist and everything else, starting his own revolution. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that he was talking to someone who was more knowledgeable about revolutions than myself or Russell Brand, and he suggested that what would turn the world around quick is if people who had a lot of money and possessions could no longer have private security. That there's so much private security being used to protect the things that people feel they need to protect because they have more than other people. And that was just like, wow, that's a unique idea, and there's a lot of truth to that. And I don't want to speak to the rightness or wrongness of that. I don't think that's within the scope of this conversation, other than I would think that would be one of the things that weighs heavy on people who have more wealth and power. The fear of losing it,
Yeah. We're all here doing our unique work, which is why we have the lives that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all wonderful. It's all beautiful. and it all weaves together so brilliantly to create the harmony that, even though it seems like there's so much chaos in the world, it's really quite harmonious. And allowing everyone to play their role perfectly. And
I am amazed. Sometimes I think about that, and I'm just like, wow. Even say, like, myself and my son, who live in the same house, and we do most things together, like, his world is completely different from mine, you know. Your world is completely different from mine, even though we have so much in common. Then we can look at people who we have very little in common with, and they're living a completely different world than we are, you know. It's just like, wow, there's infinite worlds within this one world, and they're all ticking along and happening, and we all get to make our choices, and it's just amazing, you know. Like the creator was the master clockmaker, right? There's all these gears going all at the same time, and somehow it's ticking along.
So, like I said, my internet here seems to be stalled at the moment. So
trouble in paradise.
Makes it challenging to take a phone call because you need to have your computer to do that, to take callers. We had 4 callers lined up at the beginning, and
well, one thing I do want to let people know too, that this is an experiment I'm doing. I'm starting this week having a certain block of time that I'm going to call my office hours. So if people are looking to have a session, I'm going to be dedicating specific time to that, and people can drop in for shorter sessions too during that time. 'Cause normally, if I'm doing sessions with people, I don't want to do less than a half an hour. I'll do a half an hour, but I don't really want to do less than that. But I've found that I was called to be working with people more, but it wasn't manifesting, and I was wondering why that was happening, and I realized it's because my life is like so full, and I'm a mom, and I'm a girlfriend, and I'm a daughter, and I'm running this group, and I'm doing that, and I've got this plan, I've got that plan, I've got this, you know, it's like I wasn't leaving any space for it to happen. So I really felt like, oh, wow, I need to actually, like, create the space. So if you build it, they will come. So I'm excited about that and opening up space in my schedule. I mean, I always was willing, you know, like you don't have to come during those hours to have a session with me, but it just felt to me like just being there, kind of like I'm available, just feels so nice.
Putting it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I still totally seeing clients at other times during the week and stuff, but that was a little plug I wanted to put out. And it felt like a cool sort of law of attraction teaching to share with people, just like understanding the energy of, well, how could something else show up in my life more if I'm not really, you know, allowing it? So, creating that structure.
I would say to people who are starting out with becoming teachers and channels and astrologers and new age light worker, whatever it is that they're called to do, that one of the key ingredients is persistence, just sticking to it. Not necessarily sticking to one way of teaching or one thing that you're doing, but the longer you do it for, the more you're putting yourself out there as a teacher, the more exposure, the more things you post, the more it is going to speak to an audience, and after a while you'll have people coming to you. But if you do it and think, like, I need it to be supporting me fully by the end of year 1 or year 2, or I'm just going to go back to selling insurance or whatever, you know, then you might not get there. You really need to stick with it, you know. You really need to be like, this is, and if you love it, then you will. If you don't love it, then you might not.
Yeah, well, fear is pretty strong, and conditioning is really strong. What I found was I had so much fear that maybe this won't work out for me, and I'll just have to go back to a 9-to-5 job, which I was so passionate not to do because I felt like such a slave, and like I was wasting my life. Even though I chose jobs that I was passionate about, it was still hard for me to live in that lifestyle. And what comes to me about that is like the story of, oh gosh, now I don't even know who, is it Abraham? Is it Abraham who leads his people through the desert for 40 years?
No,
I think it is. Right? Moses. Okay. Yeah. I remember reading or hearing somewhere that the people had to go through the desert that long to get rid of their association with the slavery. I didn't even realize I was making a double slave reference, because they couldn't experience something better until they were able to fully be cleansed of that conditioning. And the conditioning in us to be a good little worker starts, from kindergarten or preschool. I mean, that's what we're being indoctrinated. We're being conditioned to listen to everyone else and not to follow what is within us in the purest way. So that is wrong, and we are afraid to step out of that box. It's hard, So sometimes it takes a lot of doing nothing to do anything, because so much is being burnt away in the fires of transformation within. Well, that got dramatic. So are we going to 8:30, or are we going any longer?
We can keep going. I was thinking that since I can't take a call right now,
I still have poems too.
You still have poems. If you want to do another poem, we can do that.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Do it.
Did you have something else? Okay. I have a few of them. I was going to say I have infinite poems. I seriously have, probably over 500 poems. But I won't keep you here for all of those. But to give you an idea of if I have more poems, yes, I do.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
I think this one, the ones that want to be read keep just sitting in my hand really strongly and not wanting to get out of my hand. So that's how they're choosing me. Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun listening to intuition and seeing how things light up for you and seeing how things speak to you?
Yeah.
It's I don't even remember when I met you, but I know that whenever I would have an interaction with you, it's you would just kind of light up for me and shimmer, and I'd be like, oh, that guy, And so we haven't even. We've played and had fun and talked about some serious stuff online, but as soon as you said, "Do you want to be on my radio show?" I was like, "Yeah." Yeah, I do.
It's really natural. Yeah.
I just knew it. All right. So here's the poem that is sticking to my hand in a nice way. We're so fragile, and we're so strong. We're everything we've ever been. Such delicate grace it takes to wake up in the morning and sing the song of existence every day. How vulnerable, how impenetrable. To share that delicacy with another, to share that delicacy with the world, to share ourselves with ourselves. How do we do it? How do we not do it? Remember when you wanted to be a ballerina, a rock star, figure skater, firefighter, an astronaut, a husband, a wife, a mother, a father? You're all that. It's still in you. It is you. You haven't missed a thing. You couldn't. It's all still here. Tears, tears, tears for this delicate condition and the intensity of this wild ride. You are everything. Enjoy yourself.
beautiful.
Thanks.
That's such a huge realization for all of us, that we are everything, that it's not about becoming only this or overcoming that, or it's about embracing the fact that we are everything.
And I am 42 years old, and starting to. Are you?
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
October 3rd.
Oh, how cute. I'm older than you. I'm a February baby, so you're a Libra. That's sweet.
Yeah.
So, I've been starting a number of new things at this stage in my life, and that's really kind of vulnerable. And I'm starting, and I'm thinking I would have never done this. I thought I was done with learning a whole new whatever, It's just it's wild for me. And so I guess I wanted to share that with other people. Like, that's okay. You can start any time, and anything that you think you might have missed, you can still do it. It's not a problem. You didn't miss anything. It's okay. It was a message to myself. Do we want to talk about the energies that are happening right now? I didn't give any astrological information to people, or I know I've been posting on Facebook every now and then, ooh, this is happening, this is what I recommend, and you've been liking and commenting, yeah.
I would love to hear about it, because it's not part of my wheelhouse. I'm not, it's all Greek to me. And I do have some. I pick up on some things. I'm obviously I've heard of Mercury retrograde and Saturn return and things like that, but it's not it's always fascinating to me because it's completely new information.
Well, it's challenging, and this is the interpretation element again, as an astrologer, and I don't, I guess I hear some astrologers talk about this, but really to be able to know how much to interpret it in my head into English. Some people want to hear the astrological words and learn, and some people don't. So that's what gets tricky. If I knew nobody wanted the astrological terms and I could just always translate it completely into English, but then when I do that, then someone's like, well, what are you talking about? And they want the information. So I think I would lean a little bit more towards keeping it in basic English from my astrological perspective, and I have a sense that you probably, I don't know, you may have something to add, or you might have that to say. Well, basically, what has been happening has been a very intense time. I guess that's what I want to share with people, and to just really breathe, really take care of yourselves. I mean, right now we have 4 planets in Scorpio. Scorpio is, deep, dark, intense, all of our taboo stuff, everything that's hidden, everything that needs deep healing. And we got 4 planets right there. We've had Saturn going through Scorpio. That's a 2.5 to 3 year cycle, and we've been in it for a couple years now, I think. So it's just really massive. There's a lot of massive astrology going on that is very intense for people. I had to turn off the trending news on my Facebook. I don't watch the news anyway, but the trending news was getting me, and I'm like, no, I don't want to read about those cannibals. Seriously. The headlines are insane. And I think my life is intense until I look at that stuff and I go, whoa, I've got what I call super being problems. I don't really have a problem compared to what I see going on in the world. So a lot of that is, some of that is behind us, because we had the Mercury retrograde and we had eclipses and we had all of these solar flares happening too. So we're in kind of a little bit of a lull right now. But just talking about the larger shift, there is an aspect that a lot of astrologers believe goes along with the whole 2012 and shifting realities and whole new earth and all that. and it's called the Uranus-Pluto square. And have you heard of this before?
I vaguely recall something about that.
So basically, it's these two planets that got together and had a rendezvous back in the 60s and started off this whole shebang, right? When we had the first sort of revolutionary time. And now they're in the next phase of their cycle, which is like a conflict phase, which is why we see all this conflict and revolution. And because of the way they're going forwards and backwards together and dancing over a period of 3 years, they're making this contact with each other 7 times. And that's kind of the backdrop of all of this wildness that's happening in our Earth right now, and the beginnings of the Aquarian Age. But basically, just to kind of give people a heads up, we're going to have the 6th one of these 7 transits, December 14th. So as we're building up to that, there's going to potentially be some more intensity, and that could be a little bit of like some conflict happening or some challenge. And then the 7th one and final one happens in March, the middle of March next year. So that's really, when people talk about 2012, like, yeah, we kind of like shifted into the new Earth then, but there's just still so much that needs to transition and transform and change. And it's all still kind of up to us. So I just have this sense that people are challenged right now from everything I see. So what I like to share is that some of this will be easing up, in the coming years, but also to give tools to help them to weather the storm with as much grace as possible and to enjoy it. Things like meditating, chanting. I'm such a huge proponent of chanting. I mean, you keep your mind and your mouth on God. That's like the best thing you can do for your vibration and your transformation.
Yeah.
Nature, so important. Get out in nature. Take time for yourself. Rest. All of that stuff. Listen to your body. Listen to your inner voice. Really trust that. All of those things are so important as we go through these intense times. Does that ring true for you?
Well, I mean, I just moved to Hawaii, and that was actually kind of that was intense. That was an intense experience of bringing 4 pets here and selling all our stuff except what we could fit in suitcases, and still not having a permanent place to live now that we're here. It's all very intense, and and there's a volcano that's, could not only is it the lava already flowing, but it could knock out could block off an entire street from where we are to where we want to be, at any time, and it's just, it's like, super intense here and in my life, and it's I would say that definitely rings true for me, and I don't think it's just because I decided to move to Hawaii. I think I'd be experiencing that no matter what I was doing, because I do seem to fall in line with all that stuff. That astrological stuff seems to be accurate into my life and what's going on. So, yeah.
And when I work with people individually, what I usually do is just go to the now with them, the present moment, and ask them, okay, what is going on for you right now? What's most important? What's presenting itself? And then go from there. And sometimes I'll get messages intuitively to share, and sometimes I'll feel to look at their chart, and that will give me a lot more information. Occasionally, well, a lot of times, actually, I use my oracle cards. I feel like I'm going to be getting away from that more and more, though, which is interesting. I'm like, my work is always evolving, and that's an interesting challenge, but it's exciting. So I feel like I'm going to be getting more into just a straight-up intuitive interpretation and working with their guides and helping them translate and helping them to learn to hear that guidance, too. because what I find it happens with the cards, unfortunately, sometimes, like, I love the cards, but they almost do feel like a parlor trick, and, like, people aren't connecting sometimes. Like, it's crazy. Like, I will tell them something that I know is, like, straight up true information from their higher self, and, like, they won't hear it, and they won't take it in, and they won't listen to it, and they'll be like, well, can you pull me a card? No. You gotta hear what I just said. That was your heart and mind and soul speaking to you, you know? So I'm starting to feel like I want people to understand that a little clearer. Somehow you know. But everyone's gonna hear what they hear, what they're ready for, what they're a vibrational match for.
Right.
You know? So it's all well and good.
Yeah.
But that kind of gives some insight into how I work with clients. And it's just kind of like I'm informed in the moment, you know, based on what their question is, where the answer is going to come from and what's going to be most helpful for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're welcome to use me as a guinea pig or an example of what you do because like I said, there's just no way for me to take a call right now and have someone call in with a question. So, like, there's a lot going on in with this move to Hawaii, and everything is up in the air, including the fact that we thought we wanted to be on the Big Island, and then we got here and we were like, maybe we really want to just go to Kauai and not explore the Big Island at all for any amount of time. And now we're feeling like we want to be on the Big Island. And then we thought about, well, maybe we want to be on this particular, definitely on the east side of the island. We're pretty certain about that. But then we're thinking about, like, what part. And we were looking at a place called Hilo. And then today we were driving around and thinking, like, even though Pahoa, which is kind of where we are now, even though it's on the brink of being completely wiped out by lava, and if not, like, completely wiped out, then possibly having major roads blocked off from lava flow. Even in spite of that, you know, it seems like it's a place that feels good to us. And so, and so, like, earlier today, we were thinking about, let's move our temporary housing to Hilo, because then we'll be closer to where it is that we want to actually live, and it'll be easier to look around at places if we're not 45 minutes away. And now we're at the point where we're thinking, well, maybe we'll just stick here a little bit longer so that we can look around in the area, which is called Pahoa, that I, for one, have just been ignoring all the listings in Pahoa, because I'm thinking, like, well, we don't want to live in Pahoa. But, you know, it's funny how that, it's like shifts every day. Like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Where do we even want to look? You know? Yeah.
Well, that brings up a number of questions, obviously. Do you know your birth time? Is my first question.
Of course.
What's your birth time?
1:28 a.m.
And what's the city?
Manchester.
Manchester where?
Connecticut.
Okay. I'm kind of course, I just made this big speech about not wanting to use the cards, and I'm like, I kind of feel like looking at a card for you.
I love cards.
What?
I love cards. I think they're fun.
I know. Well, I have my Archangel Michael cards.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, you are so Libra, my friend. Have you ever had your astrological chart done? Oh, my goodness.
I think I have.
You're not just a little Libra. You are the Magnetti Libra. Okay. Yeah, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in Libra. So that's pretty amazing. And then you've got the rest in Leo. Your moon and your rising are in Leo. So that's a lot of fire and air. And okay, but you need to move towards some earthiness. You've only got 2 things in Earth, and one is the thing that's saying you need to evolve towards Earth, and one is like you could get some grace through Earth. So I could see how a move like
what did
this,
you say about the Earth thing?
You don't have a lot of Earth in your chart, but your soul wants to evolve. You are naturally a spiritual nurturer, and it's your soul's path to bring that into daily practical life. Like, working with people from a spiritual perspective on how to create a job or a life for themselves that really works for them on a day-to-day level would be brilliant. I don't know how much of that you do, but we both sort of been drawn to that when we were talking. You just had a massive transit of Pluto squaring your sun, so you probably just experienced kind of in the past year or two, like major death and rebirth. And you also got married, right, in the past year?
Got married in the past 2 years, got separated a year ago, and like almost exactly a year ago we got back together. So we've been together in the second phase for almost a full year of our marriage. And so there's been a lot in the past 2 years with relationship for sure. Yeah, and now we're thinking about moving into separate housing so that we can have more of a dating type of relationship and not living together, and spending all of our time together.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that could, what I'm also seeing for you, I feel like I'm skirting the issue of the actual question here, but other things are popping out of your chart. Your 4th house, which is home, like I was looking for that to see what's happening. Why is it so crazy? Oftentimes we would have like a Uranus transit to the 4th house, something having to do with the home, because that's when things are like, they can't settle, we don't know, it's unexpected, we don't know what's going on. But well, you kind of are having that actually. It's probably going to keep up for a while, honestly. I'd have to say a little bit of unexpectedness, but you do also have. You kind of, you know what, this is the spiritual testing grounds of that. Can I live in the now? Can I follow my highest excitement? Can I roll with the punches and go with the flow, is what I'm feeling based on what I'm seeing and what you're telling me. And Jupiter is going through your 1st house right now. So it's really a time where things can come to you as grace and largesse and expansion to you personally, your person, like your personality, who you show to the world. And it's also going over your moon and then your Venus. So that could be really good for your emotional life and your wife, and also your Venus rules your 4th house of home. So I see some good stuff happening there, but you are going to really be called to trust your guidance, you know?
Yeah.
And trust that it's all going to be okay, even as, like, the ship settles. That's a huge thing.
Even as things are unsettled right now, and I kind of feel like I just want to get into my house where I'm going to be living and get back to my routines that I like so much. I kind of get that if that's not happening right now, then that's not really what I need. I need some more of this, some more uncertainty and upheaval and
I kind of see a little more, a little more shake-up. But what it is, and this is just the key with the Uranus transit that you're having, and actually you and I are both having the same one too because we were born so close. We both have our Uranus at 18 degrees Libra. We're both going to be having coming up the Uranus opposition where Uranus opposes itself. And that is something I've heard is like when you can do like your major life's work, you know. So it's like, it's this kind of upheaval and this craziness, but part of it has to do with having the freedom to be your authentic self. Like, that's so important. And maybe, you know, you guys living in separate residences might be a key to that so that you can really, really feel like you can drop into your authentic self and be your most genuine self. Because sometimes it's hard to do with someone right next to you. I mean, that's, I didn't do it. But that's the gift. Even though there's like a lot of upheaval and unexpectedness, and it's like kind of lightning flashes, it could be like lava coming at you, you know. It's just to help you to drop into your most authentic and genuine self.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds great.
Yeah. You got this.
I like that.
So that's just kind of a little mini reading, give you a sample of what I do and maybe give you a little bit of balm, I guess. You know what I like about astrology, too, that, you know, if we had more time, I could go through and give you more specific dates of what's happening and when and how, because you can see the end point and you can see, oh, okay, this is in resonance. It's not, I'm not crazy. You know, there's like a real comfort to that. And then sometimes I feel like astrology can be a crutch because it's like, well, if we just trusted what was happening, that's the shortcut. But somehow they have our minds, give our minds something to do to grapple with what's happening can be really helpful. So and it can give us so much information and the timing too. So it's nice.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, like if we didn't know about that whole Mercury retrograde thing, we might not understand why things are not working out with this deal or this purchase or this. You know what I mean? But since we know it, it's like, now
just
I can
knowing Mercury retrograde saved my life. You know, I mean, it's just like, and it was, you know, my job that I had that I finally quit was I was a weight loss consultant. That was the last job I had. And I would sometimes see up to 20 people a day, and I would hear all their stories as they're going through my office, right? And they would all be telling me this stuff, and it was kind of killing me because I'd be like, it's okay, it's just Mercury retrograde, but I couldn't tell them that. I had to try and have some, like, logic instead of my real knowledge. Although astrology is very logical, it's just that most people today don't understand that yet. So, yeah, it's really amazing to be able to understand. It's like, oh, okay, this is happening. It's all right. The thing for me about Mercury retrograde, too, is that it's often not as bad as we think. Like, whatever's happening, we're like, oh, gosh, my car broke down, and, oh, I'm going to have to take it in. It's going to cost me $500, and what will I do? And, you know, and then you find out, well, they actually end up taking a long time with it, and they're like, well, it's only $100. You know, it's like something you can live with, something you can work with, but it's just that it takes extra time, it takes extra patience, it takes extra good humor, hopefully. So those are all good things that's happening there.
Now, what would you say to a person who said to you, I want to start following my intuition more, listening to my intuition, but I don't really know what it is or how to start doing that? What would you say to that person?
I would say, you know what, it's hard for me to say because my answers come specifically for the person. There's so many different ways you can get in touch with your intuition. The first thing that came to me was meditate, you know, so that you can start to hear through the silence, so you can hear through the noise, because that really helps to see what's real and what's true. I think everybody should have some sort of a meditative practice, at least at some point in their lives. That's so powerful. But it's going to be different for every person. So, you know, I would probably say, well, what are you drawn to? Because for me, I think it was easiest at first when I was writing. You know, I would journal. But sometimes I talk to a client and they're like, no, I'm not interested in journaling, you know. Sometimes, it comes through song lyrics. It's really, the bottom line is paying attention.
Yeah.
Because it's talking to us
really
all the time. Paying attention, and then I think playing with it, and then paying attention more. Like, oh, I think that was my intuition. I'll follow it, and let's see what happens, and that's how you get really better at it. Having fun with it, not taking it so seriously, trusting that it, starting off with the smaller things, and just paying attention to what the results are. I believe it's ultimately practical, That's a great question. I've actually been thinking about putting together some sort of class on helping
you totally
people.
Should.
Right? Yeah.
No, it's a big. That's a big one.
It's so
big
because it's just like that thing we were talking about, the possibility of like jumping into your true self and your true vocation. It's going to look slightly different for everyone. There's so many different possibilities.
Yeah.
Can we do one more poem?
Yeah, let's do a poem.
Yeah, I have a final one. Well, there's plenty more, but this is the one that I was thinking of ending on.
Yeah.
And it's about a spiritual journey and enlightenment and awakening. There is an opening which happens that can feel like a door or a flower. Once begun, it takes us to a chamber of infinity inside the heart. Some say you walk through once and you are home. Maybe. You flower once and you are home. Maybe. Walk through now and see. Flower now and see. And now, and now, and now. It is a constant opening, walking, flowering, now.
So good.
Thank you.
And you do have a knack for reading them.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think we're going to wrap this conversation up, and I apologize for my technical difficulties. I'll have to have you on again. It's because when we got here, I thought, the internet works great. It's awesome, but it's just been like off and on. Off and on, it's working great and awesome. Yeah, but at least we always have phones, so we were able to make the show happen. And I so appreciate having you on my show and all the high vibrational energy that you brought to my last 90 minutes and everyone else's last 90 minutes. And, I just wish you all the best with your website is your name. So if people want to go to your website and see what you're doing, why don't you spell your name for people?
Sure. Terri, Terri, Plewa, Plewa.com. And
how did you pronounce your last name?
Plewa. It's a W that sounds like a V.
Okay.
Polish.
Plewa.
I think.
Wow, okay.
There should be like a handy-dandy pop-up that happens when you go to my website if you want to be on my mailing list. That's a really great way to keep in touch. Because I'm not as good at keeping my website up to date. That's something we'll see if I expand into more. But I'm really starting to focus more on keeping people in the loop with the mailing list. Maybe some of you got an email message from me today about this program, so thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And there's information about my services on that page, too, and links where you can purchase and all that jazz.
Yeah. So great. Well, thank you for my reading, which is helpful. And
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming on the show and being my Facebook friend.
You're welcome.
And I wish you all the best in everything that you're doing in your relationship and all that good stuff.
Thank you. I'll be watching your progress in Hawaii. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
All right.
Much love to you and all the listeners.
Yeah, I love you. Have a great night.
Aww.
And I will go into my announcements now, so you're welcome to just hang up if you want, or whatever you want to do, mute yourself, or but I'm just gonna the show will go on, but it's basically just going to be my announcements now for the network and myself and everything. So I will say a farewell to you for now, and have a lovely night.
Thank you. Farewell.
Okay. All right, everyone. So listen up, because I've got some Enlightenment Evolution Network news here. We have a show on tomorrow afternoon called the Soulfulpreneur Radio with Rachel Archelaus and Megan Crandallmeyer, two of my Connecticut cohorts, although Rachel has moved on. But they do a lovely show about business and spirituality, and they're both psychics. They love to give readings on their show, so they often have great guests on there. And their show's tomorrow at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And all of these shows can be accessed through our Facebook portal, the Enlightenment Evolution Network, which is both a page and a group. And all of our hosts have information about their shows on there. There's also a Soulfulpreneur website. And, yeah, so definitely check out Rachel and Megan's show. It's really good. And then tomorrow night, we have Victoria Vives with her show, Earth, Sky, People Radio. And that's on at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And Victoria has lovely guests on her show, has an eye towards living in community on her show and in harmony with the earth. And a lot of her guests are talking about those types of things. Again, that's every Tuesday night on the network. And then Wednesdays, we have Rob Gothier, the man who started it all with the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. His show is on at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. He's a channeler for Treb. His website is trebchanneling.com. He has guests all the time. He channels himself. He channels Treb and Aradif now on his show. And sometimes he just talks about specific topics on his show, which is fun because Rob's such a great guy. So check his show out on Wednesdays. On Thursdays, we have Phil Malka with Consciousness Evolution Hour, and that show is also at 6 and 9. And he frequently has guests on his show, and sometimes he just goes freestyle and talks about specific topics or not anything specifically. And he has this group on Facebook called Consciousness Evolution 2.0 that he started, and that has over 3,000 members now. It's one of the best spiritual groups on Facebook, and they just all rally around Philip when he does his shows. It's really cool. So definitely check out his show on Thursdays and his group on Facebook. And then on Fridays, we have Colleen Angel with The Earth Experience, also at 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. respectively. And her show is all about living 3D while we are on our way. Well, we're actually 4D, but sometimes we pretend we're 3D beings still. But anyway, check out Kalina's show. She is an angel, and she brings a lot to that show and puts a lot of time and effort into creating a show, which is very clear if you listen in. Saturdays, we have Disclosure Now with Texas Rebel and Pied Piper. And those guys are on Saturday nights, 6 to 9 p.m. And then Sunday mornings we have Karen Newman with About Oneness. Her show's at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. She's a channel and a singer and has a twin flame that sometimes does shows with her. And she's in the Netherlands. So she's broadcasting a lot of times from Europe and sometimes from the U.S. because she travels a lot. Check out Karen's show. Check out, I believe this show is starting up this week or already has started, the Resonance Intention with Universal Soul and Neil Gar, and their shows all about musicians who want to raise the frequency of the planet and individuals who are infusing high-frequency vibrations into what they do. And those two are behind the Portal to Ascension phenomenon that they put on events there from out of Irvine, California, but sometimes they're online events, and they have people from all over the world. So they have a new show. We're very excited to have them, and definitely check out all the shows by visiting the Enlightenment Evolution Network Facebook group or page, because there's a page and a group. And then you'll see what we're all up to. And then check out my website, DanielScranton.com, if you want to see what I'm up to. I have a live Q&A event. I think I do because of the internet situation. But those are always on Thursdays. Every Thursday night we do a live Q&A with different guides. I have the Hathors up this week. And you can join by phone or internet or Skype or whatever. And that's it for me. Next week I'm going to do a show with Lana. We're going to talk about some sort of topic that we'll come up with. Moving to Hawaii, living wherever you want to live is basically what we're going to talk about. So definitely tune into our show next week. And that is all for me tonight. Aloha, I love you, and mahalo for listening. This is Daniel Scranton signing off. Good night, everyone.